What up? What up? What up? What up? What up? Daniel Augustin here after week 13 of college football. Listen, man, it just gets more and more interesting, even if it hurts. It gets more and more interesting. This is a bittersweet recording. Personally, I'm a huge Florida Gator fan. I've been a big Colorado Buffalo fan since Deion Sanders came. Been a big Deion Sanders fan. Love what he's been doing, you know, being able to coach his sons. I just feel like that's such a beautiful opportunity for someone to have. So I'm going to start with that game. I'm going to get into that game. I also think that game had probably the biggest implications of this week because of where Colorado was last season, where they managed to get to this season before this game, and just about still to this point. But also because of all the hype that came with Colorado as well, because of the fact that the Big 12 is struggling to have a viable option to get into the college football playoff. So there are a number of reasons why. I'm going to get into that game first. So first of all, Colorado loses this game 37-21. They were 3-point favorites coming into this game. Now, I was already troubled by this game well before because, you know, it had nothing to do with the odds and what the odd makers thought. I was troubled with this game because Colorado, even though they've been doing pretty well against the run, it's all situational. Football in general is situational. Teams can get you out of your comfort zone and can start creating situations where you are now playing outside of your comfort zone. You like to run the ball, but Colorado's already put up 2 scores, so now you feel like you kind of have to run the relay that they're running. So now you start passing the ball and you're completely just losing sync with what you've been working on all summer, all fall, what your team is actually accustomed to doing, what they're best at doing. So even while Colorado has been doing well against the run, I never believed it. I believe their pass rush was special because I believe that pass rush is a matter of will. The quarterback standing back there in the pocket for 4 seconds. Somebody can get to him. It's hard to stay in front of somebody. If you've ever played basketball, you know it's challenging to just stand in front of somebody and slide left and slide right when he got this move and he got screens and so many different ways to get by you. So I believed in their pass rush. I believed in the pass rush also because you got somebody like Warren Sapp coming in there as the assistant. And he's bringing a lot of energy and assistance to these guys. But stopping the run is different. Stopping the run takes all 11 guys. You don't ever just stop the run with the front 4 or the front 3. You don't do that. That's not how it works because your front 4, front 3, they're going to be nullified by the front 5. Period and point blank. They might make a play on the ball, and when they do, be happy for it, be grateful. But really, the front 4, front 3, their job really is more so to make sure that the running back runs into a gap that doesn't help him, or their job is to hold off 2 of those 5 linemen to where the linebackers can now get a clean entry, make a tackle behind the line of scrimmage or within 1 to 2 yards. Colorado couldn't stop the run at all. If I'm not mistaken, Kansas had 8 possessions in this game. Kansas scored on every single one except for the last one because they ran the clock out. This game was very difficult to watch because Colorado lost this game the same way they lost to Nebraska, the same way they lost to Kansas State. Before this game, I even said that I see Kansas as a mesh of Nebraska and Kansas State. I felt like they had Nebraska's toughness, size, but I felt like they have Kansas State's strengths, which is running the ball. Kansas actually has more strengths than Kansas State, if you ask me, because they have 2 wide receivers over there that are just lights out. One of them was nullified, Skinner. But you got Luke Grimm in this game, and let's see what Luke Grimm's numbers look like. So Grimm in this ball game, 4 catches for 35 yards. And I just had a problem with just about every single one of his catches were big catches. A lot of them on third downs in particular, averaged 8 yards per catch. And Colorado never had a plan for him. Kansas didn't really come into this game trying to throw the ball. So when they do throw the ball, you can expect and you can expect and should expect that they're going to go to their go-to guys. Yet, and still, Colorado didn't have a plan in place. They didn't have Travis Hunter specifically lined up on Grimm. Colorado has this arrogance about them that really bothers me in a lot of ways, and it shows more so on their defensive side of the ball. It shows a lot on offense too, but it hurts you more on defense. Offense always still puts up points, so at the end of the day, you rarely see where the offense went wrong. Hell, in this game, Shedeur Sanders' stats, 23 of 29, 266 yards, 3 tutties. So you're going to look at it like, man, he was hella efficient. Yeah, okay, but in a game like this where you're not stopping Kansas at all, the most you stopped them was holding them to a couple field goals. In a game like this one, there's no margin of error. Offense is going to have to score every single time they touch the ball. Automatically, just based on how Kansas was dominating the time of possession, Colorado didn't even get the ball as much as Kansas did. Kansas had the ball for 40 minutes. Colorado had the ball for 20. The game is 60 minutes. You get 20 of the minutes. Where is that really going to benefit you when you're a team that tends to score a lot of points because you get the ball a lot? The only reason Colorado's made this big jump this year and have been successful is because it's not just because their O-line is doing better, but it's also because their defense has been able to get the defense off of the field and get the offense back on the field. And the offense doesn't need the ball that long. They take 2 minutes, 3 minutes sometimes to score. Colorado can't run the ball for Nathan. They haven't been able to run the ball at all season. They've struggled. They don't do it well, period. Whether you want to call that a struggle or whether you just want to say that that's just something that y'all don't do. They don't do it well at all. So they can't dominate time of possession ever, really. Because when they do have the ball, their wide receivers are so quick and so explosive that they can score like this. Colorado's not the kind of team that goes on 10 to 20 play drives that take 7 minutes off the clock and make the other team feel like, oh, damn, we're still playing? This is still a game? Okay, all right, I guess we'll just go back. That's not what happens when you're playing in a game against Colorado. So Colorado gets the ball. They can go downfield, score 4 plays, 5 plays, 6 plays. And all of that is great. That's really great. That's sexy. That just looks so good on a stat sheet, looks great on a highlight. But again, this is another one of those scenarios why people say Colorado's more flash than substance. Because they don't know how to win games like this. You're going to see a lot of emotion in this probably because it hurts to watch games where people don't learn from their mistakes. First of all, you should have learned from the Nebraska loss. Didn't learn from that one. Bounced back, though. Had 3 wins in a row. And then you go up against Kansas State. A team that, at the end of the day, their identity shows more often than it does not. They lost their identity against Arizona State. I'm gonna get into Arizona State versus BYU, but they lost their identity against Arizona State because of what I said at the beginning of this video. Arizona State jumped out on them the same way they did against BYU. Kansas State felt like they needed to throw the ball. That's not who they are. Kansas State ran the hell out of the ball against Colorado. Nobody wanted to tackle DJ Giddens. Nobody could tackle DJ Giddens. He was constantly on the 2nd and 3rd level, constantly making people like Shiloh Sanders look foolish. And that happened again today with Neal. And he made them pay for it. It was ridiculously embarrassing. First of all, Kansas puts up 331 rushing yards versus Colorado's 41. Where the hell they do that at? That is wild. That is wild. You cannot sustain that and win. You cannot do that. Okay. When you look at the stat sheet, it doesn't look like Colorado tried to run the ball that much because you see Shedeur Sanders had 4 carries. Augustive had 2 carries. Hayden had 4. Welch had 2. But when you watch the game, those 8 carries that their running backs had hurt them every single time they gave the ball to one of their running backs. Didn't make any sense why they were trying to run the ball. It genuinely didn't make any sense. They weren't winning on the line of scrimmage, couldn't win on the line of scrimmage. Nobody on their team tried to win on the line. It didn't even look like they tried to win on the line of scrimmage. And Colorado was running the ball as if they expected something to come out of it. They were running the ball as if they were really trying to keep Kansas honest and make Kansas play closer to the line of scrimmage. For what? For what? Y'all have been the team that has been throwing the ball up and down the field on everybody. Come into this game with a mindset that you're going to win in a way that benefits you. Because you can't really just come into this game and just decide, oh, you know what? We're going to run the ball today. And that's going to be the reason why we win. It ain't never been the reason why y'all won. Why the hell is going to be the reason why you won today? One of the things that really, on both sides of the ball, really, that really bothered me about the way Colorado approached this game was they didn't have a plan on offense or on defense. And you can tell when you watch the game. There was no plan. Colorado came into this game with an arrogant state of mind that they're going to win because they're Colorado, because they've been successful, and they're going to be successful by doing what they've been doing and by trying hard and by playing hard and by going hard. Nah, that ain't going to work when another team has a specialty and their specialty is your weakness. Colorado did nothing to stop the run, could do nothing to stop the run. Colorado did nothing to align themselves against the wide receivers. So when Jalen Daniels did throw, he was successful more often than not. They had Jalen Daniels looking like maybe one of the better versions of himself. He didn't throw a single turnover, could have. A couple moments where he was close, didn't throw a single turnover because he didn't have to throw the ball that much because Colorado couldn't even really put him in throwing situations. Kansas was running the ball on 3rd and 9 and getting the first down. Kansas averaged 6.7 yards per play. Kansas had 78 plays to Colorado's 42. How you gonna win? How are you gonna win if you're Colorado? Kansas was 2 for 2 on 4th down. They couldn't be stopped. And they weren't stopped. Like I said, they had 8 possessions in this game. Colorado didn't stop them once. Kansas scored on every single possession. And again, like I was saying, Colorado had no plan because they didn't try to exploit a very specific matchup. No, you just saw Shedeur Sanders dropping back and trying to make his choice as to when he was going to go there and when he was going to go there. No, you're not going to try to run one of these wide receivers in motion and try to get the matchup that you like because it's the matchup that you saw while you were studying footage, while you were watching film all week. When you saw that linebacker right there is weak in coverage, that safety right there is weak in coverage. That safety's been giving up a couple deep balls. We're going to get that safety on a couple deep balls. We're going to get that linebacker matched up. Colorado didn't do anything to throw Kansas off. In part, that's what happens when you're in a match, in a fight, in a game, in a brawl, and you're the one that's getting punched. And now you're forced to punch back. I've been in plenty of little brawls in the playground where I thought I was going to whoop somebody's ass. And he kind of got out on me first. And now it's kind of like, oh, damn, okay, first of all, I gotta block this dude, and then I gotta find my spots instead of me just kind of dominating and showing that you're not gonna beat me and having that energy from jump. This was hard to watch. I'm gonna go through some of my notes here. First of all, I'll just call this one stat. Devin Neal, 37 carries. First of all, 37 carries, workhorse. Nobody was gonna stop him. Nobody could stop him. Shout out to Tony Sands, too. Really, really dope seeing him on the sidelines out there. Somebody I trained with when I was in high school and college. Speed coach. Good to see you. Good to see you. Devin Neal, 37 carries, 207 yards on the ground, 5.6 average, 3 tutties. And then he also caught a touchdown. He had 4 catches, 80 yards. Colorado started the game out giving up a touchdown to Kansas so quickly that I already knew they was about to be in trouble because this was not a game that Colorado was going to win just because they got firepower, just because you got Travis Hunter and you got Shepard and you got Wester. This is not a game you're going to win because of your weapons. This is a game you're going to have to win because you stopped them. Why? Because they can run the ball and y'all think y'all been good against the run. But no, Texas Tech stopped running the ball because they was trying to keep up with y'all. They started running the ball in the 4th because they was just ready to get back to what was going to work for them. Kansas State came out, ran the ball from jump, and as soon as Kansas State stopped running the ball against Colorado, Colorado made their comeback. As soon as DJ Giddens sat out for like 8 minutes to a whole quarter, that's when Colorado started coming back. As soon as Giddens came back into the game, it was over. It took Kansas 2 plays to score again, and the game was over. Colorado has a clear weakness when it comes to tackling. Okay, they averaged, in all of their wins, they averaged 9 missed tackles in their wins, 14 missed tackles in the games that they lost. By the 3rd quarter, they already had 15 missed tackles. And I cannot wait to break down this footage. I will be breaking down this footage the way I broke down their Kansas State game tape. All right. Like I said, this is just not a team. Kansas is not a team that Colorado can allow to score quickly because Kansas can also beat you by taking their time. So if they get to choose and decipher when they want to take their time or when they want to beat you quickly, you're not going to be in control ever. And it showed from the very first possession of the game. And it showed on Kansas's last possession of the first half when Kansas was able to move the ball down the field with like 30 seconds on the clock. Colorado was not in control at all. I mean, it shows on the score. It shows in the stats. This is one of those games where you can look at the box score and be like, oh, damn. Running quarterbacks have always given Colorado hell all season. Even quarterbacks who don't even really focus on running, quarterbacks in general who can run the ball have given Colorado hell. Jalen Daniels in this game, 6 carries, 72 yards, averaged 12 yards per carry. Again, that just goes to show Colorado had no plan for Kansas's strengths. They had no spy on Jalen Daniels, despite the fact that Jalen Daniels can run the ball quite well, and it's probably what he does the best, as opposed to how he throws the ball, because he tends to be turnover prone. They had no spy on the quarterback. They had no spy on Devin Neal. Colorado just lines up week after week, and they just try to play you like, this is who we are, this is what we do. I thought they were going to make adjustments. I thought they were going to maybe shift and go from man to a zone. Still, all of the trickery that Kansas had in mind was destroying Colorado. They were constantly putting Colorado in bad situations, and it all stemmed from the run. It all stemmed from the fact that Kansas could always lean on their running back, getting them a first down on a 3rd and 9. Again, no stops. Colorado, 0 stops this entire game. Margin of error, there was no margin of error. So if Colorado had a possession where they didn't score and they had to punt the ball, they were already hurting their opportunities to win this game because they could not stop them on defense. Colorado gave up more rushing yards in the first quarter than they did all game against Utah. The Jayhawks literally gave Colorado more than they can deal with in this game. And I have been saying this since the start of the season. I literally have had people in my comments coming at me for this. Colorado is small. They're a team that wins with pursuit, passion, and speed on offense and on defense. They're not the kind of team that has guys that look like NFL players. Not until you see the speed of one of these guys. And you really only see the speed of one of these guys because of a mismatch, or the defense is all the way off on the other side and it's a 2-on-1 or a 2-on-2, and that's when you can kind of see somebody blazing by somebody. But I don't see Wester running by DBs every single play because he's that fast. He almost got caught on that punt return last week. He's quick, explosive, but I wouldn't say he's just dangerously fast. Travis Hunter is running by people, sure. Shepard, good speed. Horn is probably their fastest player. Hasn't been playing for the past couple weeks. And Colorado does not control their own destiny anymore. Colorado had 2 possessions in the first quarter. First 15 minutes, they had a 3 and out, and then they had the ball for about 3 minutes at the end of the first quarter. Kansas was the team that shrunk the game and dominated on the line of scrimmage every single possession. This goes right back into what I was saying about the margin of error. I personally wish I had a stat for how many times Colorado has attempted a draw play on 3rd and short and on 4th and short and have been unsuccessful. It's embarrassing, and they keep trying it. It's a terrible play for them. You guys don't dominate on the line of scrimmage. When you look at the size of Kansas State's offensive line and the size of Kansas's offensive line versus the size of Colorado's offensive line, don't go to the website and go look at anybody's weight. No, the eye test. Look at them right there on the television. Look at them right there on the television screen. That has a lot to do with why Colorado doesn't win on the line of scrimmage. That's 1. 2, will. I was looking at Kansas's offensive line on a 4th and short. It was a 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 in Colorado's territory. Kansas was in the red zone. I've never seen an offensive lineman do this. In all of my years of football, playing, watching, I saw Kansas's offensive line doing this before the play. It sounds so foolish. It sounds so minuscule. It looks like it's so silly. To me, it means the offensive line knows this game is in our hands. And if we dominate on this play, you lose. And we are going to dominate on this play. Offensive linemen don't talk. They don't do nothing unless they get to catch a touchdown or unless you score a touchdown and they get to run in there with you and you give them the ball and they get to spike it, or they come in there just to lift you up. They're constantly the supportive crew. Nobody talks about them unless they're making big plays and constantly just moving people out the way. People don't talk about the offensive line. To see an offensive lineman beating on his chest before the play, like, I already know what I'm about to do. I'm going to win my matchup. I don't care who is in front of me. I felt like Colorado had no chance. I kept watching in hopes that Colorado could make something happen. But I felt like they had no chance. That's a sad way to watch a game if you were rooting for a team. And Colorado was ranked. This is not a game you can afford to lose. It don't look good for your school. It don't look good for your reputation. It doesn't look good for the Big 12. I went back to some of the stuff I talked about last week and how Desmond Howard was on College Game Day talking about, why are we picking this game? The Kansas State versus Arizona State game last week. He tried to clean that up this week saying it was a joke. It wasn't a joke. He didn't say it like it was a joke. First of all, I think he shouldn't have done that, first and foremost, because when he does that, it devalues the P4. It devalues the Big Four conferences. They, on College Game Day, should actionably be talking about each of the four conferences because those are the brands. Those are big brands. Colorado finally works their way into this position where we're ranked 16th in the nation. We have the clear path to this Big 12 title game. And then they fumble, and they don't even look like they competed out there. They just look like they got their ass whooped. I'm going to fire off these last few notes so I can get to my next few games. Shiloh Sanders should have been kicked out of the game for that targeting penalty. I would have liked to have seen him get kicked out of the game because I would have liked to have seen how the rest of their secondary would have responded without him in the game. He misses the most tackles of anybody on that team. He is one of the sloppiest tacklers on that team. He's not wrapping anybody up. He's hard to watch out there. He's not a good leader. This Colorado team, I think personally, has actually already won their championship. I think their championship was the one they had against Baylor when everybody stormed that field. I don't know how many times you get field storming opportunities in one season. I think Colorado has already won their championship. Next week, they're going up against Oklahoma State, which is going to be a lot more of the same. Oklahoma State is struggling and has been struggling and has not really gotten things together like Kansas has. But Oklahoma State is a team that if they can run the ball, they will. And they're going to play hard. And if Colorado loses that game, I mean, that's just the worst way to end your season. That's like a repeat of last year, just with less games. At least you'll make a nice bowl game. But I don't necessarily see Colorado going to the Big 12 title game anymore. Can't say that I do. Arizona State has been dominant. They get to play Arizona next week. BYU plays Houston. I can see both of those teams winning. BYU did start playing much better in the end of that game. So I think they can at least build on that, beat Houston next week, and we could potentially be looking at a BYU-Arizona State rematch. For Colorado to win this game, they were going to have to make stops on defense. This was going to have to be one of those games where it was a signature Heisman game for Travis Hunter. I think he played well. He's been playing well. But it was going to have to be a signature Heisman game. He alone was going to have to help Colorado win this game. Or Colorado's coaches were going to have to show up in this game in a way where they help Colorado win this game. I don't know if it's the fact that they're letting Shedeur call plays. Sometimes you need the kind of relationship with your quarterback where sometimes they can call the play, but sometimes that's not going to happen because you're watching things from above. And in this game in particular, there was no effort to beat and exploit Kansas's weaknesses. So unless Shedeur is studying the other team's weaknesses, him just showing up and trying to find the open man ain't going to do it. Last but not least, and I think this is my most important note when it comes to Colorado, I like watching Shedeur Sanders play a lot. He's very efficient and he can get the ball to the right spot. But if he does not play on a team that has an offensive line, if he's not on a team that has a dominant defense, he's not going to be able to be a successful quarterback. I like him. I've been working on my comps, and I have a list coming out that I can't wait to release with quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, DBs, and who I see them as their comparison in the NFL. And with Shedeur, the only two quarterbacks I kind of can think of when I look at him, his style of play, his strengths and his weaknesses, I see Tom Brady and I see Russell Wilson. The Seattle Seahawks Russell Wilson, who can make a little bit happen in the backfield. He can make some plays. He's not the fastest, not the most explosive, but he can just kind of bounce around and make a play kind of last a little bit longer. And then Tom Brady, body type is kind of similar. Neither one of those guys can run. So those are the two guys who I can kind of think of when I think of Shedeur, but there's a big difference when it comes to Russell and when it comes to Tom that I see in those guys that I don't see in Shedeur. Shedeur reminds me of his dad. His dad was never, ever, 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 ever a leader on the field. His dad was always a leader of himself. He governed himself. He played his position. His dad was always on an island. Shedor's always on an island. Shedor doesn't strike me as a leader. It hurts for me to say this. I don't see guys like that as the kind of guys who can be successful quarterbacks on the next level. Guys like that are the kind of guys who make plays. They ball, they shine, but they don't uplift the team. When they're playing well, the team plays well. But I don't see him as the kind of guy who can rally the troops. And the troops aren't always on offense. Sometimes the troops are on defense. I don't see him as the guy who is such a leader that he can walk over to the defensive line and the linebackers and the DBs and he can start saying, hey, y'all boys, we need a stop. We need y'all to stop them. We're going to get the ball back and we're going to score. I don't see him as that guy. He doesn't have a vocal presence. I just see him as a baller. I don't see him as a leader. There's a reason why Tim Tebow and the Gators won 2 chips. Tim was a leader of the entire squad. The Gators defense was on point, mind you. That defense was not slack. They were not weak. They showed up week in and week out. But they knew damn well they had to answer to Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow would go over there and rile those guys up and get them going. Where is that in Shedor? Where is that in this Colorado team? I don't see that in him, and I don't see that in Travis. In Travis, I am seeing somebody who's more so like Terrell Owens. Give me the ball. Give me the ball. We'll win because of me. And they might have. They might could have. They might just could have. If Shedor would have been getting them the ball quickly and they would have just been scoring just every single play, if Travis ends this game with 18, the only way Colorado wins this game is if if Travis ends this game with 18 catches, 20 catches, 400 yards. Travis needs the kind of game that Devin Neal had for Colorado to be in this game and for them not to lose by as much as they just lost. But again, no focus, no focal point. They didn't have a specific place they wanted to go with the ball when they were down there with 6 minutes left on the clock and Shedor's driving down the field and they're in 4-down territory. Where was the specific play? Where were the 1 to 2 to 3 plays that you knew that somebody was going to be wide open? Because Kansas had a ton of those. Where was y'all specific play? Why is it that on that final drive for Colorado, this is their last drive, that they really saw the ball seriously? If I'm not mistaken, this is the last time they saw the ball, period. Why is it on that last drive? I'm talking about they got the ball back with 8 minutes on the clock. Colorado ran the ball twice. Why? Y'all ended the game with 40 yards. What the hell y'all thought y'all was going to do on the run? It didn't make no sense to me, dog. Watching this game made no sense to me. Colorado it's like some of these coaches, I don't understand where the adjustments are coming from or if the adjustments are even being made or if the players just don't care sometimes because it doesn't show on the field, doesn't show on the tape. I cannot wait to break that tape down. Would like to see some clarity from one of these teams. Would like to really see somebody just stamp that they are here, they're serious, they're not going to give any letdowns, but there's not really been anybody who's been consistent. Really more so only teams who have the juice right now. And as of right now, the teams that have the juice right now are Arizona State. Arizona State is the only team in the Big 12 that has the juice right now. Arizona State and Kansas, but Kansas is not in contention. Kansas potentially gets into a bowl game, though, so we'll see if they win next week. I'm very happy for the Kansas team, though. They deserve this win completely. I know I just kind of spoke on this just from Colorado's perspective. Kansas deserved this win. They dominated in every single aspect of the game. When they needed to throw the ball, they were able to. When they needed to run the ball, they were able to. Like I said, not a single punt. Kansas did not punt the ball, not once. Kansas won in every single aspect of this game. Offensive line, they dominated. Their defensive line didn't necessarily win them the game, but they got pressure on Shedor when they needed to, made him uncomfortable when they needed to, and they set the tone. They set the tone on offense. And like they set the tone on offense, I just want to say this, and I just want to make this clear. There are 3 sides of the ball. You got offense, defense, and special teams. You need to win at least 2 out of the 3. Ideally, you win all 3. If you set the tone on offense, you have a chance to set a tone on defense and even things back out and to kind of see how things play out in special teams. Kansas set the tone on offense. It was very clear that they were going to run the ball. 37 times they ran the ball. They had 78 possessions. Devin Neal ran the ball 37 times. That's just Devin Neal. Okay, Jalen Daniels also had quite a few carries in this game. Jalen Daniels carried the ball 6 times, so that's 43 carries. Morrison carried the ball 11 times. That's 54 carries. Grimm had a carry. 55 rushes. They had 78 plays. So essentially, math be damned, they had, what's that? 20, the stats right there. 21 passes. Jalen Daniels threw the ball 21 times to their 50, how many did I just say? 56, 57, 56 rushes. They knew what they was going to do. They knew what they was going to do. All the while, Colorado didn't get as many possessions. Shedeur threw the ball 29 times, and they ran the ball 12 times. No, y'all needed to pass the ball 12 more times. That's what you had to do, because you needed to score faster so you can get the ball back, because you wasn't able to stop them, period, point blank. This was the kind of game that if Colorado was going to win, they were going to win by the strength of a bad penalty on Kansas's part or by the strength of Kansas fumbling the ball. No turnovers. None. So, congratulations to Kansas. They are on their way to potentially getting into a bowl game. It's nice to see them get things moving in the right direction. It's nice to see them really starting to get the most out of their team and some of their players. I just hope that Colorado learns something from this. I don't know that they will, because they've lost in this same way 3 times now. Dylan Raiola, Avery Johnson, and Jalen Daniels, neither one of them had to throw the ball in an excessive amount of times to beat Colorado. Not one of them. Every single one of those games were dominated at the line of scrimmage. Those running backs had highlights for days in every single one of those games. I don't know if I'm missing anything here, but I am very disappointed in this Colorado team. I'm very disappointed in the way that they played. I think it's hard to win, though, when you don't have the ball in your hands. It's hard to win when you can't keep the ball. And Colorado was the one in this game trying to match Kansas. Colorado was trying to run the ball in hopes of potentially slowing the game up. But if you're not able to do that, then what? You got to figure out what you can do. You got to be your identity. Your identity needs to stand firm regardless. Tough loss for Colorado. And they lost to an unranked Kansas team. Kansas is the first college football team to beat 3 ranked opponents ever. Ever. I don't know how Colorado digests this loss. This is the biggest loss of the season for Colorado. I don't know if they bounce back. I hope they do, because they're still in contention. Let's see what happens next week with Arizona State and BYU and Colorado, because they can't necessarily be trusted to be worth the reputation that they begin building. Last but not least, everybody in the media who is so quick to bestow Colorado with the crown, bestow Deion Sanders with the Coach of the Year, bestow Travis Hunter with Heisman. You are so thirsty, and you have a lot to do with, I'm not going to blame you and say you're why Colorado lost, because if Colorado eats up their own hype, that's on them. But everybody got to slow down. This is a week-by-week basis. And just because you played and lost in week 1 and week 2 and week 3, that doesn't mean you're the same team in week 4, 5, and 6. Every single time you show back up, it's a new team, new effort, new strategy, new approach. They got to figure out how to start these games better. They keep starting these games out like they got time and it's always going to be okay. They'll figure it out. They're used to winning. We're used to getting things to go our way. And it shows. Again, I'm not trying to come for Shedeur, but everybody got to be held accountable. And at the end of the day, just because you make highlights and you got great stats, it doesn't mean that you are your stats. Shedeur in this game, his body language, he kept calm the entire game up until he got sacked on a specific play where there were like 2 or 3 Kansas players that were up above him and kind of one of them tripped on top of him. And he got frustrated because they needed that down. They needed that possession. Couldn't get it. And he was clearly frustrated. You're not as cool as you think you are. I'm going to try and go back to see if I can have a stat for how many quarterbacks that have the type of air of calmness that Shedeur has that have actually made it to a Super Bowl. The only person I can maybe think of is Brock Purdy. And I think even Brock Purdy is a quarterback that's surviving in the NFL based on the system that he's in and based on his ability to get away from pressure sometimes. But when he doesn't have his wide receivers in the game, his main guys, he struggles. When he doesn't have Christian McCaffrey, he struggles. That team has an identity. Brock Purdy's not the identity. He's one of the guys. But when I look at guys who are winning, winners, and I see guys like Patrick Mahomes, who's a leader, a vocal leader, who everybody rallies around. I could see why he's successful. I could see why he's been to how many of the past few Super Bowls and trying to get a three-peat? Tom Brady, extremely vocal. I see Shedeur following around in Brady's footsteps, trying to follow in his footsteps, saying praise God every single time the Raiders lose because he thinks that that's where he'll be drafted. But you don't have that same kind of spirit. You don't got that same kind of heart, and you're not that kind of leader. Throwing the ball is one thing. Your stats are one thing. But can you turn a game around when your team isn't in the win column based on every single stat that's on the stat sheet? Can you win a game that your team isn't supposed to win? Until you can do that, it's going to be very difficult for you to win over a locker room full of guys that are 23 to 35 years old, grown-ass men, got kids, wives, houses, mortgages, and know damn well that quarterbacks are a revolving door. Do I think Shedeur is a great quarterback? I do. I think if you replace Will Howard and Shedeur Sanders, put Shedeur on Ohio State, I think you're potentially looking at an undefeated Ohio State team, but that has a lot to do with Ohio State's defense. Ohio State's defense helped them win that game today. Ohio State's special teams helped them win that game today. Sometimes it can't just be about the quarterback. Sometimes the quarterback has to be the cheerleader. So I'm wrapping this up. This video, this episode, this series, this game, this recording. It's already too long. It's longer than I wanted it to be, but I'm emotional because I wanted these guys to win. Was coaching from afar and saw none of the calls that I called work their way onto the field. Tough ass loss. But hey, my guess is Shedeur's happy. His stats still look good. He didn't throw any interceptions. He didn't make himself look like he's not a Heisman or a first round pick. Or there's an arrogance about that team that shows at the wrong time. And it's the reason why they're not 10-1. It's the reason why they potentially might not get into the Big 12 title game. I got to keep it real. I got to call it like I see it. I'm not going to be here and just talk about how they should have won and the ref did this. No, you didn't deserve to win. You got bullied since the start of the game. And when that happens, if you don't find a way to punch back, you're going to lose. I'm cutting it. I'm cutting it here. I'm done with this. Colorado loses 37-21. They never stood a chance.